Welcome to this week's edition of Le.Pontien Reacts on What Do They Drive? And today we are looking at the 2022 Range Rover edition that has been announced by Land Rover in the US and all other parts of the world. Now, we shall recall that the Range Rover has been one of the most iconic SUVs all over the world. And most celebrities over the years have somehow owned a Range Rover as one of their cars during their lifetime. So we expect that the 2022 generation is not going to be any different, and we expect it to come out with industry-leading and industry-changing technologies, the way Land Rover and Range Rover have always led the market in developing new technologies. So what I shall do is that, first of all, we must acknowledge that over the years, Range Rover has developed extremely luxurious features within its models all over the years. So I will not dwell on what has become standard throughout this table of cars. Instead, what I'm going to do is to only focus on a few that I find to be very distinctive and distinguish this car from the previous generations. So the first thing that I'll say, the first feature that I find to be most impressive is that Range Rover has introduced new technology in its headlamps for the 2022 make of its car. Instead of using so many LEDs, which it does actually, but it's also introduced millions and millions of pieces of mirrors and glasses which reflect this light. And the impact here is that this car will be able to produce very powerful beams that can illuminate the way for the driver. However, despite the power of this beam, it is not going to dazzle the oncoming traffic. So this is a very important safety feature that Land Rover has introduced and included in the 2022 version of its generation of the Range Rover. The second feature that I found to be very impressive is that it has a new anti-roll system that actually prevents this car from tilting towards any direction, even when it's cornering at very high speed and in very tight curves. Unlike most other cars, where when you're driving at certain speeds, you will be able to see that the car is tilting either inwards or outwards, depending on the speed. This car does not tilt in any direction, which means that you will be able to drive this car at very high speeds, even when you are going around very tight corners. And the third feature that I found to be most useful is that the 2022 Range Rover has introduced very outstanding rear wheel steering in its 2022 generation. What it means is, again, here is that the 2022 Range Rover will be able to corner within a very tight circle. And in fact, they even demonstrated it and said that the Mercedes A-Class, the smallest car of the Mercedes range, will actually turn within a much larger circle than a car double its size that is found in the 2022 Range Rover. So it means that this rear wheel steering system is really important in enabling drivers to turn in very fast. The fifth feature that I found to be most useful is that the lower tailgate of the Range Rover SUV, like I've always said, I am a strong believer of the split tailgate. Range Rover has gone a step further with its split tailgate in the 2022 Range Rover. What they have done is that they have introduced a backrest that the users of this car can actually use to sit when they are out, when they are going outdoors, or maybe they are watching a game or something like that. So it's a very useful feature. This is especially for an SUV that is designed to be used in the outdoors. Last, the Range Rover for 2022 introduces active noise cancellation. What this means is that the speakers of the loudspeakers are included within the headrest. So what that means is that it will be playing music directly into the ears of the listener, and therefore they will not be able to be distracted by other people that are inside that car. So eventually, basically, you are just in your own world when you are inside this 2022 Range Rover. And of course, before I sign off, I always also like looking at those features that I find are not really impressive, or rather they don't really add any value to the car. In this case, there are only two. The first one is that Range Rover has introduced flash door handles to its doors. So now, for you to open the door of the 2022 Range Rover, you need to move in fast and press some button, and then the door handles will pop out. So I find this to be actually increasing the amount of work that the person is doing. So I don't find this to be useful at all. And the second feature that I found to be of no use is the rear seat armrest for the rear passengers. They do not have a physical function a manual function where you could just pull down that armrest, and instead there is an electric option, only an electric option for it. And unfortunately, it worked so slowly, it would have just been much better to just pull that thing down with your hand. So apart from those two, the 2022 Range Rover stands and promises to be a wonderful car, and as usual, with lots of luxury and lots of utility, combining the two in a way that no other SUV so far has managed to do all over the world. So this indeed is a first for Range Rover, or rather Land Rover, which has filed 125 patents with the introduction of the 2022 Range Rover. What that means is that this model of car is coming with 125 new technologies and features that are industry leading. So that is it for this week. Until next week again, when we meet here on Le.Pontien Reacts on What Do They Drive. Bye bye.